Good evening. I would like to call this March 22nd, 2022 closed session city council meeting to order. I'd like to point out that this is being hosted through Zoom and it's being live streamed through teleconference. City clerk, can we have a report?
Thank
A
you,
roll
Mayor.
call?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Krupa.
Here.
Councilmember Males. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer. Mayor Lilienthal.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to point out that our comments should be limited to 3 minutes or less for items appearing on the agenda. Comments should be directed to council as a whole and not directed to an individual council member. City clerk, are any registered speakers?
Mayor, there are no registered public speakers.
Okay, so then now we're going to proceed to closed session. Y'all ain't going over nothing. Stop talking. All right, good evening. I'd like to call this March 22nd, 2022 City Council Work Study Session to order. I would like to point out that this meeting is being hosted through live stream on the city's website and by Zoom teleconference. And I would also like to remind the council to have their microphones turned on and positioned so that the audience can hear us. City Attorney, do you want to catch us up on where we're at in our protocols?
Absolutely. So we are on section 6 of the city council protocols. That is the section on council committees. So with your permission, I'll begin going through the protocols again and indicating where I've maybe received comments and then asking the council if they have any comments. All right.
Yes.
So starting on section 6, council committees, the first portion of this, and I'm bringing up the previous comments that I had received. Give me 1 second here. Okay. This is in relation to how the council will be creating committees. So council committees are defined as any committee created by the council which has 2 of its members and discusses generally how and why council committees are created. Also provides the distinction between standing committees and ad hoc committees. I did not receive any comments on this section.
Now I have comment. On both of them, is there any requirement for reporting out to the full council on each of the meetings?
There is not language included within here.
Should
that-
there be?
that requires it. I think that's a very good idea, and for a couple of reasons. The biggest one is that it helps break Brown Act chains of discussions by having reports come back to the city council. That essentially, when you have committee members, there's just 2 of them, they've talked, right? So they can't talk to any other council member
Right.
outside of a meeting. So the only way for the information that they've obtained to be conveyed from that committee to the council is at a meeting of the city council. And so having that reporting is good. And the second is that it goes back to the very purpose of the committee, right? The committees aren't designed to operate autonomously as beings unto themselves. They're designed to assist the business of the council. So by having that reporting process in place, I think that's a really good idea. The question would be, do you want it to be in the form of an oral report? We already have a portion of the agenda that's designed to have those oral reports, or do you want it in some other form?
Well, on the investment oversight committee, we actually have minutes that we approve at the next meeting. And I know both Mayor Pro Tem and I do report out at council meetings on that, but we don't necessarily, I think that's about the only standing committee that we have. But on ad hocs, I don't think we necessarily report out, and I don't know what would be, I mean, sometimes you can't report out progress because that progress may not be the next step in what's being done. I mean, other than when we were doing the protocols, every so often we say, yeah, we met and we're making progress. I mean, is that considered a report? Or
Well,
would it be in detail of, we went through the first three sections and these are the changes that we're recommending? I mean, that's like a full report.
Yeah, I mean, this is fundamentally a question for the council. How much information do you want to be receiving from your ad hocs? And so you're quite right on the standing committees. I mean, there are agendas.
Right.
There are minutes that are taken.
Mhm.
And so those minutes can be transmitted to the council, and that should give them a good idea of what's been discussed and what action has taken place. For the ad hocs, under the Brown Act, there's no requirement that there be an agenda. There's no requirement that that meeting necessarily be open to the public, or that minutes be taken. And so unless the council is going to require minutes be taken, and that would obviously increase the burden on staff to prepare those and send them in, it would seem to come down to an oral report of the standing committees. And I think that, it could be something as simple as when you're doing your reports at the end of the meeting, was there anything of note that needs to be reported to the council from any of the ad hoc committees? And then it would be incumbent upon the ad hoc committees to exercise a little bit of discretion and decide, what does the council need to know about the things that they've been up to?
And I would think that by the absence of Brown Act requirements on ad hoc committee, there's a message there. Because the whole intent of the Brown Act is transparency and in governmental actions and bodies. So the fact that there is no requirement for ad hoc, I think, to me, signifies a distinction that was being made to keep them more informal and just doing oral reports. And plus I'm sensitive to the additional burden that it would place on staff to have to make them more formalized. So I wouldn't advocate for changing that.
In order to have some kind of addressing of the council members' concerns, maybe we can look at subdivision B of 611 and add perhaps a sentence at the end of that, that the ad hoc committee shall report any items of note at the subsequent regular meeting of the city council. So that if there are developments, and look, there are ad hoc committees where things happen.
Yeah. Well, our Caltrans things don't happen, but we do.
Things should be happening.
So
But
then
we
you
still,
should-
But if something
report out.
happened, if
Yeah,
something did happen, you'd want to report it.
absolutely.
And so,
Maybe that one should say may, and in the event Caltrans doesn't.
but I can certainly put a little blurb at the
Little
end of
blurb
that.
just
that
about-
says,
Yeah, and I like the comment, the items of note or progress of note or something. I mean, because you could meet and have 3 hours worth of discussion and nothing come of it. I mean, it's just discussion and throwing things around, and there's nothing of note that could be reported out or should be reported out.
so what,
What's the
I-
difference between a council committee meeting and a standing committee?
so the difference between a standing committee and an ad hoc committee.
But the
um,
council committee is basically
No, because you got,
our regional committees.
so the regional committees would be under A,
In my opinion, yeah.
Are we talking about standing?
and then
committees?
the C,
Under appointment, the first paragraph under appointment, it talks about council committees. And doesn't that refer to the ones that we get appointed to on a regional basis, like,
No, so that's under
RCTC?
7.1 of the protocol.
oh, okay, well then
Uh,
what is that paragraph doing?
So 6.1 is purely, so all of 6
Explanation.
is talking purely about committees that are composed only of council members of this body.
Okay,
And so the only distinction are standing and ad hoc. And the distinction between those two is whether they have standing, I shouldn't use the word in its own definition, continuing jurisdiction over a matter. So the Investment Oversight Committee exists and it will continue to exist
right.
forever, so long as we have state law that requires that we have an investment policy, and our investment policy has a investment committee in it. Whereas an ad hoc committee is go talk and discuss this one problem, And then presumably at some point, the job of that committee will be done.
Right.
So a good example is the city council protocols
Right.
ad hoc committee.
Yeah. As soon as
They had a
this
job.
is approved, we're done.
Yeah, once this is done, that committee will cease to exist, and they will no longer meet. So I've added it. The proposed language I have here is the committee shall report on any significant items or may. Okay, may report on any significant items or developments of note to the full city council at the next regular meeting of the city council. Then we have committee meetings, which is subdivision C. This is pretty straightforward again. It's meetings will occur when convenient for those people who are on the committee. There was a note here from the mayor pro tem regarding the last sentence here. So it says individual committee members shall not meet with other citizens or organizations during a fact-finding process or any other reason associated with the scope of the committee's purpose without first notifying the other committee members. Since there's only two of you on a committee, essentially what that mean if, let's say the council protocols ad hoc committee was meeting, that would prohibit them from discussing the city council protocols with a member of the public without informing the other person on the committee. And the question from the mayor pro tem was, how does that really work?
Yeah.
Generally, she likes to solicit input from the public, even if they don't come to a meeting, because sometimes people can't come at all. And so there's really no way to get their input if the committee meetings are closed to the public, and you can't talk to somebody about it.
Well, and on that one, I can say I was probably in violation of that with the ad hoc on protocols, because I did seek out information and advice from prior council members on how did you handle this? And basically the comment was, oh, I think we just ignored it. I said, then it doesn't need to be in there. I mean, and how do you do that? And how do, other cities do it? And I've talked to other council members from other cities. What is your, what do your protocols reflect on your behavior? And it's like, you got to talk to people.
Right.
I told Russ, didn't tell anybody else. Of course, I guess then I didn't. I guess I was okay because I did. I told you after the
Yeah.
fact, not before.
But I think I could see this being a real problem. The one that comes to mind
Well,
is
yeah.
our homeless ad hoc committee.
Mhm.
I mean, so they're prohibited from talking to people about homelessness.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Except in the context of the committee, that seems unworkable
Mhm.
perhaps. So I think the mayor pro tem's comment is perhaps well taken. Maybe that sentence could be stricken. Is that okay with
Yes,
the
we
council?
would like to encourage conversation, not limit it.
D, communications. I didn't receive any comments on that one. Oh, well, this seems to address perhaps the concern and
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
and I guess I misspoke when you asked if there was a report requirement. So I'm going to take out that sentence I inserted.
Do that. And yes, and shame on me for not realizing that it was actually in there.
So this one does say that committee members are obligated to keep the full council well informed of their meetings and work. And this is important to the mayor because the mayor spoke on the shall may distinction. The language here says shall report to the full council at least once a month, either by written or oral report offered at a regular council meeting. So if there was a desire to change that to a may, this would be the chance to do that.
Well, yeah, if you have nothing to report.
Yeah, I think
I think most of the time we all say that anyway. We have nothing to report.
in this instance.
Okay, that shall is going to be changed to a may in D. All right, 6.2, I received no comments on. Any comments from the council? Okay, 6.3, I did receive feedback on this one. And it's pretty extensive. Would you like me just to read out the proposed language? In an effort to provide the greatest organizational effectiveness, the city manager shall provide reasonable staff assistance to committees for the purposes of administrative services, to attend committee meetings, and to assist with committee presentations to the city council as staff are available for such tasks. Committees are to provide sufficient meeting notice and scheduling to allow for staff to plan accordingly. So that would be a significant deviation from the language that's here. In particular, as it's written now, it says the city manager may assign staff, so that is discretionary for the city manager. And perhaps the city manager can discuss what concerns he would have there. I can tell you the issue I've seen in other jurisdictions is not a lack of willingness to assist council committees by the city manager, who generally speaking desires to assist the council with that and developing good policy. It's much easier to develop good policy at the committee level than ignore it and wait for it to show up at a council meeting. But mostly it's a question of simply resources, being able to be everywhere at once and
I have a-
having qualified personnel who can go.
I have a question about semantics. If we change that may to shall, then that conflicts with the last part of the sentence where it says as staff are available. So if you say you shall do it, but then you have,
It's a caveat at the end.
there's a caveat, so long as staff are available. So I think there's always the possibility that staff may not be available, no matter whether it says may or shall. I think
How well it's planned in advance.
Right. And,
mean-
and I think that was one of the things that the mayor pro tem, attempted to address, that, it is incumbent upon the committee to give sufficient advance notice to allow for staff to plan and attend. But I think that, it's a two-sided coin. I mean, I think that there's definitely circumstances in this jurisdiction, other jurisdictions, where maybe you have a committee that wants to get to work on something and they don't feel like they have adequate resources to kind of do their job. Yes, I mean, it's up to the council how they want to address this. I would point out that generally speaking, these protocols govern the council.
Right.
And when you start putting in language here that governs
Governs
the city manager, it stops being the city council protocols. So I don't know, have I stalled long enough, Mr. City Manager?
All good points. I think the big thing is obviously the staffing. And then making a request that is mindful about the staffing that's needed for a necessary meeting. I know that whenever an ad hoc has requested, whether it's me or other staff members, we make it a point to do that. So we do our very best. I do agree, though, these are council protocols, not necessarily city manager protocols. We do our best to address the requests that come through council. I do recall also previously that, there are instances where an ad hoc just wants to meet without any staff needed to kind of put some thinking together on the council side and then fold in the staff as needed. So I do believe that these are council protocols, not necessarily for the city manager to, interfere or get in the middle of the council protocols themselves. So that would be my commentary on this.
I would recommend perhaps a change to this where the committee may request the city manager assign staff. And then again, at that point, we would be talking about what the council is doing. And so that request, it would be proper then, under the
Right.
protocols, to make that request. And then the city manager, as he has to do with all things of the city, would be able to decide whether or not he has the ability to.
I like that, and I think it makes good sense to add in the other language that talks about us being mindful of advance notice, you know, however that was phrased, I thought that was helpful to have that in.
The one thing I will note, though, is that this council is extremely, I would say, mindful about the staffing that we have. And so I do appreciate that, but that's not to say that, you know, a future council or individual council members may not have the same perspective as the entire council does. So I do appreciate the council's respect and courtesy now. I think this helps create a standard for other councils in the future as well. So I think that's why that's so important.
Because I think there are times when an ad hoc can do work independently, gathering information or formulating whatever. But end result, and staff has been very, very considerate of, you know, now we need to schedule a meeting and bring in staff to make sure that we're going in the right direction legally and whatever. Changing that terminology and adding in, I don't have a problem with that at all.
So the
But
language
again, it's
that
directed to us. It's not directed to staff.
that's the idea. And I think that sort of flows better with the overall document. So the language I have now is the committee may request the city manager assign staff to the committee for the purposes of administrative services, to attend committee meetings and to assist the committee presentations to the city council. As staff are available for such tasks, the committee is encouraged to provide the city manager with sufficient notice to allow the staff to prepare and attend any requested meetings.
Sounds good.
So moving right along, if there's no other questions or concerns, to section 7. So these are the appointments to boards outside of the city. This, I believe, is a restatement of existing process, which is that the mayor shall, at least annually, or as more often as reasonably necessary, appoint members to positions, including alternates, with other government entities, for example, the Water Master, the RTA, WRCOG, RCTC, and other public-oriented organizations with the city's entitled to positions, for example, voting delegates of the League of California Cities. So, you know, and the idea that we need to be best interest of the city, want to be fair to everybody, and keeping in mind that some members of the council have expertise and experience in certain areas. And so that may be valuable to the city. I didn't receive any comments on that one. 7.2, these are appointments by the council to city commissions. So this one is interesting because we have an ordinance that's in draft form that has been hanging around in draft form that will also bring this section to life, if that makes sense, where essentially what we're looking at is unifying, to the extent possible, the appointment process to city boards and commissions. There are a couple of boards and commissions that either by state law or by laws that were created for the city, but you are not allowed to change them. I'm thinking of you, Measure U, where we have to go through a special process. But for the vast majority, library comes to mind, planning commission comes to mind, infrastructure comes to mind. It might be helpful to have a unified process for appointment. And the other side of that is also making sure that there is adequate representation from all of the districts of the city on these boards and commissions. So this is a process that you already are using in some places. But essentially what we're looking at here is to have every commission have 5 members. Every commissioner on the planning commission, library, infrastructure, et cetera, essentially be assigned to one of the districts. And that council person gets to nominate the person to fill that seat. Now, that still requires the city council to approve or ratify that selection. So if you get a council member who tries to put somebody on the planning commission and the person they're nominating is just out to lunch and unacceptable to the majority of the council, then the council could always deny that. But the idea is to give every person on the council the opportunity to at least nominate one person to each of those boards and commissions.
Is this the same concept as everyone gets a trophy?
No, I think, well, so look, there's a couple of ways you guys can put people on boards and commissions. This council, I think has a good rapport and, but it's, you know, it's not certain that that's always going to be the case. You know, there could certainly be a winner take all mentality. You know, if you had a 3-2 council and the council appointed people to the planning commission, the 3 people on the council could fill all 5 seats on a planning commission or an infrastructure commission or the library commission. And then, you know, those 2 council members who maybe are on the other side, their voice isn't being heard at planning commission. Their voice isn't being, and, you know, that doesn't necessarily do a service to the constituents who elected that council person. And when you have 5 at-large council people, maybe that's fair, right? But when you're doing district-based voting for the council, having each council member at least have that opportunity to nominate somebody seems to kind of fulfill that purpose.
But I mean, the way we did it before, it worked okay for the last 10 years and nobody complained about it until we kind of like changed the council, you know, to where, you know, that, I don't know, it just seems like since, you know, it's changed now and that,
Part change.
It actually
Well-
hasn't changed.
why is that?
Hasn't changed at all.
No?
I mean, each council member has always had, quote, a number 1 through 5, which just happens to coincide with the fact that we have 5 districts. But you could always nominate anybody from anywhere in the city or in the sphere of influence if that particular seat was open for a sphere, because you can only have 2 on, well, it depends on the commission. But yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I don't have anybody that I've ever nominated from my district since we went into district. I have people from District 1, I have sphere of influence. I mean, to me, it's nominating somebody or wanting to appoint somebody that you know is qualified to do the job and that will do the best job for the city at large. And it works. I mean, it really does work because we all have different people we know. They don't, not necessarily in our districts. But I think all of us at heart want what's best, want somebody qualified in that particular category that has a good mind and a good feel and a good concern that they would represent and make good decisions on behalf of the city. So in that respect, so long as we're not tied to nominate or appoint somebody from the district that we quote represent, which again, I'll go back to what Russ always says, when you run in a district, when you get elected, you serve the city. And yeah, you said that.
Well, you, and I remember that. There's also the reality that if we limit our nominations, and again, these are nominations, they're not automatic appointments. They're just who we can nominate. But depending on the purpose of the commission, it's always possible that, you know, say if I was limited to my district, number one, there might not be anybody even interested that's in my district that wants to serve on that commission. So that means I've got to try to pick somebody, and nobody is stepping forward and saying, hey, I'd like to serve on that commission, but I'm relegated to, you know, fishing in this one pond instead of the bigger pond. And I think it makes sense that, because I think we all want the same thing, is the most qualified people with the right kind of expertise to serve in those commission capacities. And so if there's nobody coming to the attention of a council member that's within that person's district, then what do you do? So I think sphere of influence, if that's a qualifying component of the commission or another district. I think that makes good sense to be able to do that.
And I think on this, in this one, you know, the city had at-large elections for a long time, and it transitioned over to district-based elections. And the city, the written procedures for how people got nominated never got changed, but the city council kind of adopted these sort of informal rules, where, you know, there's nominations. And so I think unifying that under one process that is pretty transparent makes sense. This process is used by a lot of communities. And I think, as Councilmember Brown said, it doesn't mean that everyone gets appointed. It means that every council member gets a chance to nominate somebody to the board and commission. And if somebody is nominated who's just unacceptable to the majority of the council, then the council can simply say no. And I've seen that happen.
Yeah, it's happened. It's happened here.
And so, so I didn't get any feedback from the mayor pro tem on that. Are there any changes?
Yeah, and just one other comment, that it may be desirable to endeavor to have your nominees come from all 5 districts, because that's in keeping with the concept of the districts that the city has gone to and that most cities are eventually going to be adopting. So, and my understanding of the theoretical concept is you have equal representation across the city, and you don't end up with gerrymandering happening, and all of your decision makers are coming from one part of the city and everybody else is not represented. So I think while it may be desirable to try to make the appointments representative of the 5 districts, I don't know that trying to force that is realistic.
Well, and keep in mind, there's other types of diverse opinion that you may, as a body, also desire to maintain. And so, you know, one of the examples I see very often, just like in the planning commission arena, is having people who come from different backgrounds as it relates to the development process.
Right.
You know, so having, you know, people who perhaps own businesses in town, people who live in town, people who are familiar with utilities and infrastructure. I know that that's our chair of the planning commission is very familiar with the infrastructure in the city. And having, you know, that doesn't necessarily in experience come from where they live in the city. It comes from, you know, other parts of their background. And if you have that kind of balanced approach to your boards and commissions, I think you'll find that they are able to better serve you as a council, because they're able to spot and solve problems at that level before it comes to a city council meeting. So those are other things just to kind of keep in mind, and when you're looking at who to appoint and what their qualifications are. Okay, so I will move on to 7.3. This one relates to Measure U, Citizen Oversight Committee. I did receive extensive comments from the Mayor Pro Tem on this one. Just a little bit of a background here. The Measure U ordinance has language in it that prescribes certain requirements
Right.
for the composition of the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee. But there are some parts of it that the ordinance did not prescribe. And so the city council has decided on procedures for itself. The language that we have here in 7.3 attempts to follow the process that the city council adopted last year, with one significant change. The significant change, you'll still have the interviews like you did. Everyone will still score every one of the applicants like you did last year. The only difference is, instead of all of those scores then going to the city clerk who plugs them into, I think, an Excel sheet, and then spitting back 7 nominations to the city council, the highest ranked individual from each council person would automatically be deemed nominated. And then of the remainder, whoever received the highest average score would fill the remaining 2 slots. So long as that group of 7 meets the compositional requirement required by Measure 2, mostly based on residency. So I hope I explained that relatively well, how about what the difference between the two is. And that mirrors the kind of discussion we just had, which is every council person would have the opportunity essentially to nominate one person to a 7-member board. That does not mean that that person would be on the Measure U committee. The city council would still need to approve by a majority vote the entire slate of nominees or any individual nominee. So if there's somebody who, maybe one council member thinks that person is the bee's knees, but the majority of the council feels that that person is unqualified or unfit for whatever particular, or unqualified for any particular reason, the council is under no obligation to appoint that person to the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee. So that again tries to strike that balance, right? Where the council does operate by majority, but at least it gives every council person the opportunity to at least nominate one person who they think is qualified and will serve that committee well. Do you want me to go through the comments I received from the Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor?
Oh, I'm not the mayor. I'm sorry.
Okay. So these are mostly requirements, a request to insert language, which says on 7.3.1, the Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee, and then the inserted language is which expires in 4 years. And I think that's a reference to Measure U as a whole. So that was the suggestion. And so I'm on, these are comments that the Mayor Pro Tem provided because she's unable to attend. So she had recommended inserting that language, which I think references the sunset on the Measure U tax. And then under 7.3.3 appointment, subsection B, this is the top ranked applicant for each council member shall be deemed nominated. In the event 2 or more council members have the same applicant as their top ranked applicant, then either council member may elect to nominate a second ranked applicant, if not already nominated. And the question was, how is the tie broken? If a single choice is deemed nominated, the balance should fall to the clerk's tally in C. Because mostly the thought process was this going to your second choice would delay the process. And so essentially, if you had 2 council members and they both picked the same person, so be it, that person is deemed nominated. And then we'll just go to the top ranked 3 people, if that makes sense, rather than asking one of the council members to nominate their second highest. I mean, I think it works either way. I agree that would probably speed up the process. Although having gone through one Measure U nominating meeting, I'm not sure if speed was the priority of the process so much as getting people who are qualified and fit the council priorities. So that's the idea there. For D, the question was, what happens if the city council declines to approve one of the nominations? And so the answer at that point is, if the council declines to approve one of the nominations, then at that point the council can decide to seek a nomination in whatever way it chooses. So if, for example, the council declined the nomination of a specific council member, the council could at that point decide, you know what, who's your second choice? Or the council could the mayor could simply take nominations from the council and vote upon that person. Protocols themselves do not
Would-
address that issue.
Would that take a majority of the council to say they don't want that person, or
So it takes a majority of the council to approve somebody. So you don't vote no, you would just fail to vote yes. But that's the lawyer answer. The real answer is you're correct. If 3 people don't support you, then you're not getting on the commission, on the committee.
So if 6 are approved by council and 1 is not, it seems logical to me that in that case, the 6 that were approved are deemed appointed. And then so you've got a seat yet to fill. And if the initial approach was to give each council member an opportunity to nominate, I think it's logical that you go back to the council member who nominated the person who was not approved by a council majority and give them, what's your second choice?
I think that that's the same issue that we had with the Mayor Pro Tem's comments above, which is what do you do when someone's nomination is ineffective for some reason? So either because someone else already nominated that person or because the nominee was rejected. And I think you have 2 options. I'd recommend being consistent with whatever your approach is, because it'll make my life easier if it happens. One is either let that whoever's nominee. So let's back up a second. There are 2 nominations that occur that are the highest of the average. It would seem improbable that someone who is ranked that high would fail to get a majority of support by the council. The more likely event is an individual nomination is either a tie or is unacceptable to a majority of the council. So what do you want to do in that case? Do you want to then either give that individual their second choice, or do you want to go to the next highest ranked person of the entire council on the list?
Have the ability to have a choice on there, it seems reasonable that the council member would then have the choice to make a second nomination.
Second.
Yes.
It would.
Right.
And would it make sense that if that fails, then you
Then you
go
go to
to
the
the,
third.
well,
You are certain. I mean, so I'm imagining. I always, whenever we write a rule, I don't imagine the council I have. I imagine the council of my nightmares, and I imagine somebody who has a list that are wholly unqualified and a nightmare. And so yeah, so you could do that where we're just going to go down this council person's list and strike them until we find somebody that the council can live with. That could be
well,
the process.
I was going to suggest that if their next choice also fails, then you go to the other alternative, the next highest ranked by the whole council.
So
So it
they-
would be
they
a
have three-
hybrid
They get 3
approach.
chances.
2.
So their first choice,
2.
Yeah,
second choice, and if it's not a yes on the first or the second, then we go to the highest average. Or do you want to give them one more chance?
We have highest average.
highest average. You get 2 choices,
Get 2 chances to
Chances
put
and
forward
then
somebody that
chances.
your
Council
colleagues
average.
Yeah.
are willing to live with.
And I think
I
that
think
it's
that's fair.
I think it's important that that be documented in the protocols,
Mhm.
because if we just say, okay, it's then up to the mayor to decide on the fly how we're going to deal with it,
Not good.
it goes against the objective of having the protocols. I trust
Not-
you implicitly.
Again, not the mayor you have.
Not the mayor who's
we
seated.
have. It's the mayor from hell.
Mayor of your nightmares. Okay, so I'm not going to put together language on this right now. I will bring it back in the future. But let me make sure I have the gist of it correct, which is if, for example, we have a tie or we have a no vote, then we go to the second choice nominee of that individual council member. If it's another no, or it's another tie, then we go to the highest average ranked person that's available. Assuming, again, I don't think I don't think it mathematically makes sense that someone could be very highly average ranked, but somehow unacceptable to the council majority. But in the event that that occurs, since we're tying up loose ends, I assume that we would just go with the next highest ranked person in that circumstance.
Sure.
Okay. Is that the direction of the council though? Okay. All right. So first, no, second, no, then average. I'll know what that means. Okay. And those were the comments I had on that one. Does anyone want to discuss that further?
No.
Okay. 7.4, city council vacancies. Another one. This in no way relates to recent experience of knowing exactly what we want to do in this circumstance. This is based on language that other communities in our area have adopted for this exact circumstance. But essentially what we're going through here is we're setting up what our process is going to be to both follow the terms of state law, but also to give an opportunity for the council to avoid the cost of a special election if possible. So what we have here is that if a vacancy occurs, the city clerk shall immediately notify all of the remaining members of the council. The city clerk shall publish a notice. So again, these are all mandatory. So these are what is going to happen. There's not discretion here. The notice will set forth the length of the term to be filled, the deadline, etc. And the deadline will be no later than 30 days from the day after the vacancy occurs. Because remember, again, we have timelines under state law where the council needs to act, otherwise a special election is required. So once the applications have been received, the mayor shall call a special meeting for consideration of appointing any applicant the city council determines is qualified to fill the vacancy. If they are appointed, they immediately take the oath of office. Not included in these protocols, mostly because it's not necessary, but just as a explanation of state law, assuming that the city council doesn't appoint somebody within the 60-day time frame, it would then go to a special election. So that is what we have there. Let me see, did I get anything? I didn't receive anything from the Mayor Pro Tem on that one. I don't know if there was any comments from the council.
Two weeks?
You're on section 8 of 15, so.
All right. During this work study.
Do you want to ask the city manager to once again poll the council, and if the council is available for a workshop at the next available meeting to put the workshop on?
Hey, city manager. You think you can put this together for us again?
No.
I think so, Mayor.
All right. Well, then we'll adjourn this meeting and return back in 5 minutes to our regular city council meeting.
I got through 2 sections today. Look at this go.
What? I'm sorry. That's Lisa?
Huh?
That's Lisa? Good evening. I'd like to call the March 22nd, 2022 City Council meeting to order. I'd like to point out that this meeting is hosted through live stream on the city's website and Zoom teleconference. And I would like to remind the council to have their microphones turned on and positioned so that the audience can hear. City Clerk, can we get a roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Krupa,
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Mills. Here. Mayor Pro Tem's absent. Mayor Lilienthal.
Here.
All members are present with the exception of Mayor Pro Tem.
At this time,
Here, if I might, motion to excuse the Mayor Pro Tem.
City Clerk.
Do a roll call motion by Councilmember Brown, second by Councilmember Krupa. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Krupa.
Yes.
Councilmember Mills. Yes. Mayor Lilienthal.
Yes.
That motion passes 4-0 to excuse the absence.
At this time, we will have our invocation done by Officer Reynoso, followed by I don't remember his last name, Mr. Norm. Pledge of Allegiance. Iris.
Able to, you stand, there's no pressure. Bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this privilege and opportunity, Lord, you've given us. Thank you for this country that we live in. We ask you, Lord, for your hand upon this meeting and upon each and every one here, Lord. Let your work be done, Lord. Let it not go through. Protection.
Okay, please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hand over your heart, and let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Couple housekeeping items. There's a 3-minute person time limit for all general public comments and non-public hearing items. All who wish to speak, including council members, should be recognized by the mayor before speaking, and those that wish to join by Zoom should raise your hand if you would like to speak. When you do speak, please state your name and the item you are commenting on before speaking. Before we get there, City Attorney, do we have anything to report out?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no items to report out.
All right. First, can I have Terry Larned and followed by Dennis Fletcher?
Mayor, City Council members, thank you. My name is Terry Larned. I'm a citizen here in Hemet, and people are always asking, what do we have for kids? We don't have anything for kids to do during the summer. We have the American Legion Department of California baseball program. And the kids can be a part of the baseball legacy. It was formed in 1925. And it's been brought to you by your military veterans of the American Legion, the largest wartime veterans organization in the world. Now, what's nice about this is for the adults, for the parents, the cost is zero. And This is opened up for kids up to age 18. So when they are playing baseball for the high school, and if they go into championship games, etc., when they're done with that, then they can come here. Otherwise, they can start right away in June. And over 80 American Legion baseball players have been inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. 51% of Major League Baseball players played American Legion baseball, and 75% of American Legion players have played collegiate baseball. Now, I have a few names here you might recognize that are former American Legion baseball players: Yogi Berra, Ted Williams, Frank Robinson, Justin Verlander, Ryan Sandberg, Roy Campanella, Dusty Baker, Albert Pujols, Greg Maddox, Clipper Jones, Bob Feller, and even if they didn't go into baseball, they still made a mark. Dick Cheney, Tom Brokaw, they all played in the American Legion Baseball League. So this is, if you're interested, contact us at the American Legion Post, or I have a couple flyers here I can hand out to you. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the City of Hemet Historic Hemet Theater and American Legion Post 53 and Brown Decents CC presents the Cinco de Mayo celebration on April 30th. And it's a car show and live entertainment. It's going to be held at the American Legion Post 53 at 124 Ramona Street in Hemet. They roll in about 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. Showtime from 10 to 4. All car clubs and solo riders are welcome. If you have any questions, call Angel at 951-378-0995. And the entrance fee, if you're going to bring your car in, is $25. Now, afterwards, at the historic Hemet Theater at 216 East Florida in Hemet, the doors open at 6 p.m. You're going to have the performance of Soto. It's a Latin dance band, and it's going to be a great thing. It's going to go on all day. And once you are over with the car show, a couple hours later from 7 to 11, you have the dancing. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then on April 23rd, we have the Country Queens. We have a musical tributes to your favorite country legends, all performed by the talented Bonnie Kilroy. And she's the winner of the most unique act and best comedy, Las Vegas Reel Awards and Sunburst Impersonator convention in Orlando, Florida. And she's going to be doing Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, Crystal Gale, Shania Twain, Patsy Cline, Tanya Tucker. And that's going to be April 23rd at the American Legion Post, 124 North Ramona. Dinner, the doors open at 5:30. Dinner starts at 6, and the show is at 7. And dinner and show is $40 open to the public. So this is going to be a must-see. We sell out all the time when we have her in here. So if you're interested, you can see the post for tickets. Larry Blair, he has the tickets right now. And enjoy this. We are doing stuff in Hemet. We've got a lot of things going on that people don't realize. So let's support all this local stuff that we have going on.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Dennis Fletcher.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Dennis Fletcher. I'm representing a couple of organizations here. First, Eddie George, Hemet News. We've conducted a couple of interviews at the new studio that's at 2111 South State Street in San Jacinto. We interviewed Councilmember Joe Males, and then just 2 nights ago, Mayor Malcolm. And our interview format has been to ask them a little bit about themselves personally, and then what the city's done recently, of which is a lot, as evidenced by the fact that both of the interviews went on for about over 100 minutes. And then we asked them about what's coming up next and how can the public participate. And I think both of the people who were involved in those interviews will agree. We covered a lot of ground, and we got a lot of people interested in doing some things for the city. So we're going to be talking to the additional council members that are here, inviting them to come and participate. The interviews that we've already done are already posted on Hemet I News. They're also posted on Melanie Lee's page, Hemet Scoop, and on my page, Dennis A. Fletcher. And I put up a timeline because these things are so long. If you don't put up a timeline, people are going to get discouraged and not look at them. So I'll be contacting everybody else that's on the city council to see if they would like to join this effort. I'm also here for the Hemet Library Foundation. I'm the secretary for the foundation, which is one of the two fundraiser arms for the Hemet Public Library. And I just want to remind everybody that our Polly's Pies fundraiser started today, the 22nd. It goes to the 23rd. And Polly Pies just opened up till 9 o'clock, but our fundraiser runs, as it says on the flyer, from 8 in the morning to 8 at night. So they're not really sure if we're going to get credit if you show up after 8 o'clock. So I just want to remind everyone about that. And then finally, I'm a secretary of the Human Relations Council, to which our mayor is the president. And we extended the date of the Black History Month essay contest till March 25th. So for everyone watching in, the date is now March 25th. And please encourage middle school, high school, local college kids to participate in this because we have cash awards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. City Clerk, are there any electronic submissions?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I wanted to open up to the Zoom call. If there's anyone on the live Zoom call that would like to speak, now is the time to raise your hand. So we'll give you just a few moments to raise your hand. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no Zoom participants. I do have one e-comment, though, that I would like to read into the record. It's by Robert Xavier Betancourt Jr. General Aviation, Airport, and a Tribe by Robert Betancourt Jr. With the rise of midterm conservationist and Citizen United funding re-election campaigns, losing entities such as tribes and small cities have proliferated by going to warehouses where local county supervisors get money for rezoning directly to their campaigns and leaving the public and their constituents such as tribal members with no voice in the upcoming June primaries and November midterms. The solution is forming an autonomous block of regional constituents who benefits from such a small airport. One example is the Riverside County, where a local airport that has existed from 1928 to now has been rezoned by two county supervisors to light industrial warehouses, which allegedly through Citizens United received $30,000 each from a subsidiary of Amazon Hong Kong affiliate for those rezone changes. As of this date, both supervisors have received very little in their campaign funds. This has been preceded by putting a 360-degree fence around the airport's only restaurant 3 years ago for people allegedly looking at planes, closing of 70-year history museum, and locking away artifacts from public view, which includes George C. Patton's Africa Corps and the records of the early Civil Defense Air Corps, now the Civil Air Patrol, which also includes from 1946 to 2000 of Civil Air Patrol, an auxiliary of the United States Air Force. I then informed the local governments council of governments COG, Hemet San Jacinto, and Boba Band of Louisiana Indians of the possible loss of jobs, infrastructure grants, $2 billion pot, loss of control of airport, where is a $1.2 billion pot through Julian Dyer, FAA, National Headquarters, 800 Independence Avenue, SW, Orville, Wright Building. At the, in parentheses, FB 10A, Washington, District of Columbia, 25991, with the phone number 202-267-8375. By forming a booster club and en banc of council of governments to a petition the Federal Aviation Agency to return the airport back to the local control, including a new local proposition from the people to do an action to return to local control and force action from the Federal Bureau of Investigation on the violation of the oath of office from the 2 county supervisors who were elected 3 years ago. Naturally, these supervisors deny such action, but Cap 60 regulations require all correspondence be kept on file permanently, and some are in the National Archives under microfiche files. Even the order of the encirclement of the restaurant. It is a tragedy that this affects the 800 personnel at the airport, along with the cadets of the Civil Air Patrol, to endure this drama. Some tribes could organize a flight, which is a small group with 3 senior members who could be Native American veterans. This would start the full local control of the small airport, even if it is a dirt strip, and open up the door to grants. Grants from 1.2 billion pot of intelligent transportation under DOT and DOE, 2 billion available moderation of airports, 1.2 billion available FAA Orville Wright charging stations through website agesync.com. Linman Field and Stinson Field 80% grant, 2.5 million each grantable, will help Hertz see transportation evolve last week at LAX. Charging stations increase foot traffic 20%. End of e-comment.
Are there any more?
No further e-comments, Mayor.
Okay, let's move to presentations. We're going to start off with the Women's History Month. I have a beautiful gem here tonight with us. Her name is Agnes Kennedy. At age 93, Agnes Kennedy was born in Los Angeles during the Great Depression. She moved to Hemet in 1995 and has lived here ever since. She has been the real estate consultant for the Chicago Title 30 years, worked with real estate developers. For her service club, it's been Community Builders, Hemet Heritage Foundation, and 2 Republican clubs. Currently, Vice President of the California Congress of Republicans, she serves food at Valley Restart Shelter. She's a greeter for the Ramona pageant for 18 years. And since 1988 has designed jewelry with semi-precious stones. Another individual we wanted to honor tonight that could not be here with us is Ann Jennings, who is the curator of Emerita, if I'm saying that correctly, Hemet Museum. Ann and her husband Bill founded the Hemet Museum back in 1998 in the Hemet Santa Fe Depot building. Early Ann's husband Bill and Kent Kozad saved the train depot from being building from destruction. And even earlier, Ann and Bill helped found a storefront museum on Florida Avenue in 1987. In the 1980s, the museum took over the Hemet Pioneer Picnic that started back in the 1930s. And that picnic is now called the Heritage Picnic, and we hope it resumes this year. Another gem we wanted to recognize, but is of late, is Mary Whitley. I don't see an N. So Whitney, 1932 to 2013. So she arrived in Hemet to the care of her parents. In the late 1930s, she restored all the records in the Hemet Eastern Water District for Hemet's founder, William Whittier. then wrote 10 books about Hemet, including a volume on Hemet for the Images of America series by Arcadia Publishing. Mary was the Dean of Women at the University of Virginia. She lost her job there while attempting to get women into the UVA. And Mary Whitney was a true fighting pioneer for the city of Hemet. And one more person I would like to acknowledge is Emma Fowler Kerr from 1868 to 1932. And she married Joseph Kerr in the 1880s. The two of them founded the first local newspaper called the Hemet News. They subsequently founded the San Jacinto Register in the late 1890s. And she and her husband Joseph were early apricot and walnut growers in the valley. She was a lifelong member of the Hemet Women's Club that is still going strong. And Emma Fowler Kerr was a true fighting pioneer before the city of Hemet was incorporated in 1910. We honor all of these women, past and present, and as well as all the women in the entire world that we didn't mention tonight, for the dedication they have and demonstrated to the city of Hemet. And so with that, I'd like to read the proclamation for this month. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions throughout the world in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and women have played and continued to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the life by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home. And American women have played a unique role throughout history by providing the majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation, and American women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic work, and cultural institutions in our nations. American women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and American women have served our country courageously in the military, and our women have been leaders, not only in securing their rights, their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas women are making history every day and will continue to do so in ways that will change our world for the better. Therefore, myself, along with the Hemet City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as, the year 2022 as Women's History Month, and call upon Hemet's community to observe March, as we have been doing, as Women's History Month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities, and wanted to present this to Miss Agnes tonight. All right, so we thank you for all your contributions. And she doesn't have any words she wants to share with us. Thank you. Now let's move to item 13B, the Reality Rally 2022 video presentation. Coming to the podium is Joan Hoover. Oh, Jill. Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, city staff, and the Hemet community. My name is Jillian Larson, and I'm here representing Reality Rally. It is a fundraising event that we do in Temecula every year, and we're going into our 10th year. I do have a short video that I believe you've got prepared for you to see what we do on the Saturday, and that's what I'm here to invite you to be part of. Reality Rally is a fundraising event. We raise money for Michelle's Place. It's a cancer resource center. And as mentioned, we're going into our 10th year of making it happen. It would have been our 12th, but COVID had other ideas for us, as they did for everybody else. Are you able to bring it up? There you go. Oh, it's up there. There you go. Take a look at what all of the city council area in the area city council have been part of for the last 9 years, and this will be the 10th year. They all come to Temecula, part of the amazing race type of game all over Old Town, and so run that last 8 years. And something else. Go ahead, so Emma couldn't join us, but we'll certainly hope to join us. So that is what the Amazing Race is all about. I was a contestant on the TV show Survivor when I was 61 years old in 2008, and I turned that opportunity into something far better than a TV show could ever be. I created Reality Rally after I was booted off Survivor, and I was walking in the jungle of Gabon, Africa, and I thought, what can I do with this? And we've developed this through volunteers, sponsors, cities, and one of my favorite parts is having all of the area cities involved in this fabulous camaraderie amongst all of the cities. I have one more city council meeting to go to, that's Wildemar, and I really hope that Hemet can put in a team to play in our Amazing Race game on May 7th. It is starting at City Hall and it goes all over Old Town, doing 14 challenges this year that represents many of the areas, like the History Museum, it might be a historical scavenger hunt. The Gunfighters, it might be lassoing or something along those lines. The Stampede, it's a cowboy event. It's a rodeo. So it's a lot of fun. But the big thing is that we raise money for Michelle's Place, and that is a cancer resource center in Temecula. They started it 20 years ago to honor their daughter who died at 26 of breast cancer. And since then, they have provided thousands of no-cost services to people with all forms of cancer. It is now any form of cancer. That is why we do it. That is why we have fun. Our tagline is fun for funds. And I will really hope it doesn't have to be all the city council members, although I must say that Lake Elsinore always has their mayor and 2 council members on their team. And the floating gnome trophy that you saw up there, the little gnome, sort of a thing on Travelocity and Amazing Race. I mean, it's obscure, but there it is. And they believe that they're taking it away again this year. all of the city councils are out to get them and not let them take the gnome home this time. I actually went and kidnapped the gnome today from the city council offices up at Lake Elsinore, and I'm holding her hostage until May 7th. And I would love to see Hemet involved. Joan Hoover is the team relations director. She couldn't make it tonight because she has an evening job. And so I'm here to invite you to come and be part of it. You don't have to run. It is designed so that anybody can do it. We've had people in their 70s, which by the way I am, and also people in wheelchairs, so that they could do it. They can't do mud runs or 5Ks, but everybody can do Reality Rally with the sole purpose of having fun to raise money for Michelle's Place. I've brought up one of our 2019 programs for you to take a look, see what it's all about. And Joan Hoover will be contacting you in the morning to see who's going to come and play and represent Hemet. Love to have you guys on board this time. So thank you so much for your time. It's an honor. And I must say I honor Agnes, I believe it was, for all she's done in her life. And I can only strive to get to that age knowing that I've made a difference as well. So thank you, Agnes, for leading the way for Women's History Month. And yes, the women have got it. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for your presentation. Let's move to 13C. A Hemet highlight reel presentation.
Mayor, while this is being queued up, there was a request to see if there was a link available to be on the agenda. So we did make the link available on the agenda, so someone can just click on the link and copy that to their own files and have a copy of that, Mayor.
For the presentation we just watched.
That's great.
Walkthrough of our strategic plan. Lastly, we have an informative presentation of the My Water Advisor 2.0 customer engagement kickoff.
So as Travis Holyoke gets ready for the presentation, I just wanted to take the time to recognize Travis Holyoke as well as Tim Burke, who's in the audience. Both of them are doing incredible work to improve the water utility. And this in and of itself has been a long time in the process. But with this project itself, we're one of a few select agencies that are able to roll out this type of system. So I really wanted to give kudos to Travis. Just go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor, members of the council, in honor of World Water Day today. This is My Water Advisor 2.0 kickoff.
wrapped up in the strategic plan by delivering messages to the community that connects, is consistent and relevant. The use of My Water Advisor allows city water customers to take control of their own water usage by allowing them to monitor their consumption. A little bit of background: in December of 12th of 2017, CIP project 5654, radio meter upgrade and radio tower, was awarded by council. The water division began installing 4G water meters throughout the city in 2018 and finished completing installation in 2021. In December of 2020, the new tower base station was constructed. In January of 2021, the meter system was converted from an AMR automated meter reading system to an AMI advanced meter infrastructure. Currently, the city of Hemet is one of 11 fully AMI meter systems in the state of California. Why AMI? AMI meters can provide timely notification for leaks for customers. AMI meters provide customers the ability to monitor consumption. AMI meters give the customers the ability to set notification limits on consumption. And AMI meters allow customers to see real-time water usage actions, which create and promote water conservation, resulting in cost savings to both the customer and the water utility. So starting tomorrow, if you go to the City's Hemet's webpage, look for the My Water Advisor icon. You'll click that link and it'll take you to the My Water Advisor 2.0 sign up. You're going to click on the Join My Water Advisor, and you want to use your account number and your name and how it appears on your bill. So if you put your middle name when you signed up for service, you want to use exactly how it shows on your bill. Then it'll take you to putting in your email. You'll create a password for your login. And from there, it'll take you to you're in. From there, it'll show you monthly consumption, weekly consumption, daily consumption. And then in settings on here, you can set up notifications for if the meter will tell you if there's a suspected leak. It'll also, you can set up billing cycle consumption. So if you want to limit how much water you are going to use for that month, you can set that up in here. And if you go over it, it'll notify you. And you can also, if you go out on vacation and nobody's home, you can set up limits. So if something is being done and you're not there and it goes over, it'll also send you a notification. A suspected leak is an alert sent directly by the water meter when continuous 24-hour consumption is detected. Billing cycle consumption limits activated when water usage is above the customer's defined limits. And daily usage vacation receive water usage alerts during specific time frame by defining an absence or a holiday time period. So you go on vacation, you can set up those limits so you get notifications for that. Once you're set up, you can also download the My Water Advisor app. And from there, you can have your usage at the palm of your hands and see it everywhere you go. My Water Advisor app does not permit the use to registration procedure. So if you want to sign up on a desktop first, and then you can do the app afterwards. And with that, that completes the kickoff for this. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions from the council or comments?
I did
Set it
poke
up.
around to find some people to try this out before we went live. So thank you, Linda, for
Well, thank you, Travis.
Just one quick comment. I think that there's a lot of really good features about this, but when you talked about the notification of water usage, I have an acquaintance that went on a lengthy vacation and didn't realize that while they were on vacation, a pipe burst in their house, and they didn't find out about it until they got back from vacation. Needless to say that that was a rude awakening for them. Had they had the benefit of something like this, they could have minimized the damage substantially. So great features. Thanks for doing that.
We'll be sending this out. We're gonna put letters in the bills that are going out. We're gonna post it on our website. We're gonna try to get this out to everybody because it is a great tool for customers to use.
Thank you once again, Travis, for that walkthrough. All right, so we're gonna move to 14A. So the city council's procedures for a public hearing. The public hearing will be open for comments in favor or in opposition. And then following that, the public hearing will be closed and the city manager may respond to any questions raised by the public. And then after that, discussion will be brought back to the city council. Can we get go ahead.
Alright, council. Tonight we have the Water Conservation Plan Ordinance Public Hearing. The proposed actions aligns with council adopted objectives, evaluating existing practices to ensure continuity with industry best practices. The proposed changes are consistent with acceptable industry standards as recommended by state laws to assure adequate water supply. The Water Conservation Act of 2009, SB X7-7, Steinberg 2009. This act mandated the state to achieve a 20% reduction in urban per capita water use by 2020. AB 1668, Friedman, and SB 606, Pittsburgh legislation was signed into law in 2018. Together, they lay out new long-term water conservation framework for California. One of the items mandated in this bill is the development of a water shortage contingency plan. The city established its first conservation plan ordinance in 1991. As a result of changes in the state requirements since 91, the city amended the existing water conservation ordinance in 2015 under urgency ordinance number 1894 to comply with new state water restrictions during that drought. I think we can all remember that drought. The need to revise this ordinance, we started looking at it and it needed to be brought back up. And so the Water Conservation Plan Ordinance is a complete overhaul of the existing Water Conservation Plan, Chapter 82, Article 3, Division 3 of the Municipal Code. The proposed revisions incorporates the current state requirements as adopted, as well as mandatory elements required in the Water Conservation Plan Ordinance. It aligns with city and other local agencies in their water conservation programs, including Eastern Municipal Water District and Lake Hemet Municipal Water District. Some key changes. It establishes permanent water conservation requirements for all customers. The irrigation hours are going to be from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. We set these times because when you're watering at night, you don't lose as much water during evaporation. So more water gets put down on the ground and to irrigate your vegetation. Hosing down driveways and other hard surfaces is also prohibited. Customers to prevent any runoff from their property, and eliminates language and data that reflects 1991 usage. That was one of the big items that we found in here, that it kept referring to 1991 data and it's not necessary. Enforcement. Enforcement will be in accordance with City of Hemet Municipal Code, Chapter 1, Article 2. Along with enforcement, we're really going to push education. We really want to get out there and educate the customers before we just go out and start really enforcing. But this gives us the tools to have to show the enforcement. It aligns and establishes 6 water shortage contingency plan levels that were previously adopted under the Urban Water Management Plan. Each level shows what type of action the city will enforce to meet the demand reduction percentage. Oops. The revision of the Water Conservation Plan ordinance will be the foundation for the City of Hemet's Water Conservation Program. We are currently working to develop more robust conservation programs here at the City of Hemet. One, we can offer residents and businesses more tools, resources, water conservation, especially in the area of outdoor water usage. On March 12th, 2022, we gave a public notice on advertising the press enterprise to hold a public hearing that which the ordinance would be considered by city council. And to date, we have received no comments. Proposed actions are open a public hearing, accept comments from the public as appropriate, close the public hearing, and if appropriate, approve the ordinance by first reading and title number only, direct staff to make any changes to the ordinance as determined by the council, and direct staff to the ordinance back to additional consideration. With that concludes my presentation.
Do we have any control over the information that's in the app that you previously walked us through?
As far as
Like this information you said that you just related to us, could it be added in there?
the app is strictly for the My Water user. That is a meter system, but we are going to add more information on our city's website as we're introducing all this. The app will also show conservation efforts. So if you adjust your sprinklers, you can see it that next day on what you did and how much water you reduced. So that is a tool that these kind of go hand in hand.
Okay. Council, do you guys have any? Well, hold on. Let me open up public hearing.
If there's anyone on the Zoom call that would like to participate during public comment, now is the time to unmute yourself. And we'll give you just a few moments, or raise your hand, please. Seeing none, Mayor, there is no public comment.
Is there any public comments in our audience? So now I'm going to, is there any electronic?
No e-comments.
Okay. So I'll close public hearing and then we bring this back to for discussion with council. Anything? So we can, basically we can only water our grass from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah, that is the best time to water your grass or any type of landscape, because anytime after that, the sun's out, you're gonna lose the water through evaporations. So it's 12 hours. I'm pretty sure we can figure it out from there. And it aligns with other agencies and what they mandate as well. A lot of agencies set time on when you can water.
And when it comes to citing people, what would that look like?
So like I said, we're not going to just run around just enforcing it. We want to go out, and if we see something, we're going to try to educate the person. We're going to use this ordinance as something to refer back to, but we're there really to try to educate somebody. And if they're not wanting to comply or they just keep doing it, then we'll have to fall into the where we have our enforcement through the municipal code, and that's where we'll go through code.
With this application, water company being in control of the application, are they going to be monitoring everyone's water now through the application and see who's using too much water now? And because this shows all the water you're using throughout the day. So you can look at the application at a residence and determine, saying, oh, they're using too much water, go and monitor them and catch them, using it when they're not supposed to. So is that going to be like a police type situation where you're going to be policing everyone?
No, we're not. The My Water Advisor is for the customer only. That's not for us. We're not out there to use that tool to enforce an ordinance because they're wasting water.
But you do have the capability of looking at everyone's system on what they're running.
Correct. We have the capability to help look at people's system along with the customer to help them figure out ways to save water. So if a customer's wanting to know why they have their bills are so high or why their consumption is so high, we can be looking at the same information at the same time with them on the phone and come to a conclusion on where maybe they might be using excess water.
Let me also add something, excuse me. The app itself helps illustrate, and it's a tool to be used by residents to understand their own water usage on the fly. So as it stands now, we have the ability to determine what the water usage is at anybody's residence that has water through our city. The intent of the application isn't necessarily related to this. The application is separate and apart from this ordinance itself. The application helps to residents better manage their water use and help get them a better understanding of what their water usage is. In this specific ordinance, we are adhering to state mandates that are requiring our agency, our water utility, to develop this plan as a result of state law. So in the event that there is, let's say, some sort of water shortage that is necessary, this helps in the event of that happening. So the mechanism by which to encourage maybe a little bit more forcefully is included within. But with that being said, the city of Hemet's water utility is a little bit more unique in that we have extra amount of water. We've got extra reserves. And so with the investments that the water team is making, that will only strengthen our capacity to provide water to the community. So this cookie cutter kind of concept that the state oftentimes thinks about with respect to all water agencies doesn't necessarily apply to the city of Hemet in the sense that we don't have issues providing water to our residents. We don't have the issues of getting water from the Bay Delta or the Colorado River or other providers. So we're a little bit more unique, but we are required to develop this plan in accordance with state law. So that's why we are seeing this and having this come to the council. So it's the staff's desire to be obviously in compliance. And so this is why it's coming before council. We hope to not ever have to, utilize the fines that are included within, but in the event that something were to happen, drought, at some point may impact us, we have the tools and the mechanisms to help encourage the efficient use of water for our water utility.
Question for you, Travis. First of all, thanks for both reports and for the good work you're doing. I see in your staff report on the My Water Advisor that we're serving about 30,000 people of our population. So obviously the rest of the population is getting their water resources from EMWD or Lake Hemet. Are you aware of anything like the Water Advisor program and software that those other agencies are making available or will make available to their customers?
I believe EMWD has or is in that process. I believe they have part of their system, AMI system, to where customers can get access to see their water usage. As far as Lake Hemet, I don't believe they are there. They're still in the AMR system, but they don't have the capability yet. But I do believe EMWD does.
Yeah, I think, in some way, maybe it would be beneficial to the entire community if we advocated to those, particularly EMWD, to catch up with the city of Hemet and provide that resource to their customer base, because we basically have 1/3 of the water users in the city have this ability. Like to get the entire city have that ability. So if there's some way that we can advocate for them to like I said, catch up with the city, I would advocate for that.
Maybe this is a good time to maybe have Travis provide some more context on some of the educational things that we do to encourage water efficiency use. I know that we've got some staff members that do go out and have booths that they set up. Maybe you can talk about some of those items from a global perspective.
Yeah, so our being our foundation, we really wanted to strive to a full conservation program. Before COVID, we would go out to events, we would set up booths, we would hand out conservation kits. They would include shower heads, faucet aerators, even little tutorial on tips to save water. We would do that a lot. In the past, we have done toilet rebates. We haven't done that since COVID. We are looking into some new opportunities coming up. Hopefully that works with some landscape irrigation system type tools that people can use. We also, since we can see the usage for customers, we also see those leak alerts too. So before this kickoff, we were actually sending out our team to look up those who had leak alerts and actually go visit that property and see why there was a leak alert, so we can work with them. A lot of people had no idea they had a leak going until we showed up. So we are here, we're active, we're trying to save water. We want to help people save money as well. But those are some of the efforts right now that we're doing for conservation.
Mayor, the other thing that I'll add too is that part of some of the refresh projects that we've done in the downtown and some of the other projects we have lined up are all aligned with converting some of those more the plant pallets that require a little bit more water and replacing them with more drought tolerant landscaping that don't require as much. So I know that the water team is directly involved with identifying some of those locations, and we have other projects that we're also looking at that have really a double benefit for the city. One, it helps reduce our own water usage for our own water utility, and then two, oftentimes it's more aesthetically pleasing when you've got a plant palette that's a little bit more diverse, that isn't always people often think, it's cactus, 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 but it's not necessarily the case. And so what we're finding is double kind of benefit. One, we reduce our water consumption, and then two, we kind of liven up the area with fresh flowers, plants that don't require the amount of water that's necessary before. And then the water team goes in, does the drip irrigation that's necessary, that helps obviously save water too, because you don't have the water that gets lost due to evaporation. It's all done below the surface.
All right.
Just one comment that this basically is just bringing the city of Hemet's paperwork into compliance with the state, and not a further mandate to decrease water usage by customers, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's just to bring us up to standards. If the state comes in later and puts in a statewide mandate, then that's out of our control.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Are there any other comments? Thank you, Travis. Next, we're going to move to item 15. All right. I apologize for that. So do I need a motion?
Okay, I'd make a motion that we approve this item, waive full reading, read by title only, introduce the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Hemet, California, amending Division 3 Water Conservation Plan of the city's municipal code.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Krupa, second by Councilmember Brown. Go through roll call. Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Krupa,
Yes.
Councilmember Mills,
Yes.
Mayor Lilienthal,
Yes.
That motion passes to open the public hearing and waive full reading, read by title only, and introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Hemet, California, amending Division 3 Water Conservation Plan of the city's municipal code.
Okay, now let's move to item 15A for the investment report. I believe this is a receive and file.
Does the council wish for a presentation on this, or any questions on this?
I'm not missing.
Okay. Well, then we'll just receive and file this one, and then do we have a presentation for the update to City Council regarding water shutoff?
Lorena, maybe you can just briefly provide an overview of what we have here. This is simply our desire to get ahead of any sort of questions that might come up, get it on the council's radar, and just notify the council and the community of what's scheduled to come in the near term.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have before you an update about the water shutoff moratorium that was issued by the governor of the state of California on April 2nd of 2020. There was an executive order that restricted water shutoffs to homes and small businesses while the state responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, there were several extensions to that moratorium, and it was ultimately lifted on December 31st or ended on December 31st. Throughout the pandemic, the city's utility billing staff has been working with all customers, calling them regularly, those that are past due, ensuring that they understand that there was no indication that water past due balances would be written off or forgiven. And so we were giving people opportunities to go on payment plans, or just reminding them, hey, you have this bill outstanding. You're not at risk of having your water turned off, but help yourself, don't get so far behind. And so we worked with people regularly. We did get a lot of people that did catch up on their payments. Those who weren't able to and had a past due balance benefited from the arrearages payment program from the State Water Resources Control Board, who granted the city of Hemet $792,000 in funding to help offset some of those past due balances. And they were for balances that were incurred between March 4th of 2020 and June 15th of 2021. A total of $673,000 were applied to customer accounts, with the average customer receiving $622 in assistance for any past due balances. We have worked with those customers. We've sent them out notifications letting them know you received this amount of money based on the arrearages payment program to assist you with any past due balances. And then we've notified them in those letters, the ones that specifically received assistance. And we also have a letter that is ready to go once council is okay with that, to notify all of our water customers that the water shutoff moratorium has ended, and that they have an opportunity to reach out to the city's utility department to establish a payment arrangement. So even if they're past due, as long as they agree to a payment arrangement and stick to the arrangement, they're not at risk of having their water turned off. The letter states that late fees will begin on April 26th, and shutoffs will begin on May 11th, which is 2 weeks after the late fees begin. What that means is, it doesn't mean that all 9,200 customers will all get late fees on that day, or whoever's past due within those 9,200. It just means our city or our water area is broken up into 8 sections. So each week we do 2 sections so that everybody gets a bill monthly, but only a quarter of the customers receive a bill each week of the month. So in that April 26th late fee issuance, it will only be a quarter of the customers who will be affected. And then 2 weeks later, it will only be those customers that did receive the lates that will be at risk of cutoff. But you also have SB 998 that allows low and medium income houses or households to receive additional time to pay. So those customers will not be affected. They also will have additional time to make payment arrangements with us. And again, as long as they stick with the payment arrangements, they are not at risk of cutoff. So I think that's the program in a nutshell. I'm open to answer any questions that you may have.
I should also add too that we have made the information available to those that maybe need financial assistance. We've included that information for residents as well, so that they have the resources on their side should they need any sort of financial assistance.
In the bill.
In the letter itself, yes.
In the letter, and it will also be sent out again in the late fee notification that will be going out.
Any comments or questions from council? Receive and file. Okay, can move into consent calendar.
Thank you.
Anybody want to pull anything? If not, can I have a motion to pass it all?
Not even waiting for me to exhale, are you?
Here, if I could just add one note before you run me over here. I do want to make a note that Chief Poos did provide additional information on item 16F on the piggybacking information that was included within this item. So we just wanted to make sure that the council had that information as well.
And I don't necessarily need to pull item 16D, but I just would like to make a comment on it and invite Chief Poos to come up and snap the department suspenders on that project, because I think it's a huge benefit to not only our city, but the entire valley and actually a much larger region than that. So Chief, you want to snap your suspenders?
Sure will. I guess still keep
You're
my
not a
pants on.
fireman, never mind.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Won't be as exciting as the reality rally lady, but I love her accent. I can sit here and listen to her all night. Anyways, our flock system, I won't go over the whole thing, but we were the first. Flock Safety is a company that develops a solution for like ALPR, automatic license plate readers. It's to solve crimes and reduce crimes. We were the first city in the United States, one of the first cities in the United States, definitely the first city in Riverside County to implement this solution. We strategically placed about 20 cameras, approximately 20 cameras throughout the city. And we're able to locate either stolen vehicles or solve crimes from incidents that occurred that passed through those cameras. This is a service that we, an agreement that we go through Flock Safety, so we don't actually hold on to this information. We have access to it. Doing so, our stats were really incredible that we shared it with our county agencies, other 14 cities, as well as the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. In doing so, everybody decided, hey, this is a good program that we could collaborate and share that information. Now, as of today, all the cities and the county is vested into Flock Safety. We share all that information. What I'm bringing forward today is a purchase of 20 more Flock cameras. We are working with the county as well as San Jacinto, who purchased cameras as well, to get all the egresses, ingresses in the cities and cover those spots, and to include a new solution that they have is a Raven solution that is able to detect gunshots within a mile radius, which we're testing that out. So sometimes we don't receive calls. Sometimes we do receive calls.
Sometimes we receive numerous calls and this pinpoints what area. And this will be available at split second notice to our officers on their CAD system, as well as dispatch to dispatch our vehicles or our units to that location. So that's one item that we're on a trial basis that we're going to be testing, which is part of this solution and agreement moving forward to add 20 more cameras. So we'll have a total of 40 cameras and this Raven solution as well.
Chief, can you talk about the amount of vehicles that have been recovered? Do you
Yeah.
remember that number?
Yes, and I'm sure the number of vehicles increased. It was over 260 vehicles. We're probably around closer to 300 vehicles, over 2,600,000. So I'm sure we're closer to 2,700,000 or so on recovery, and over 200 individuals that we arrested in possession of stolen property. We also assisted in locating violent criminals wanted for murder from other counties, other cities, kidnapping, other crimes like that. So it's very beneficial. We've also solved minor crimes as well, which is what this system was designed for, and it just grew into something larger.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is just such a huge innovation and benefit for law enforcement's ability. You know, we've heard many, many times there's never a cop around when you need one, but there might be a flock camera. And I think the more that the word gets out that this is not a comfortable area to come into if you're going to commit criminal activity, because you're liable to be detected and apprehended. Substantially higher rate of return for law enforcement than what you might otherwise get. And I think it clearly falls in line. I mean, you've listed 3 of the strategic plan integrations, but I think that I'm looking at the different wrong staff report, but it hits almost every strategic plan objective. So kudos to the department for being innovative and willing to try this out, and congratulations on the good success. And I hope we'll have even more good results, and let's alert the media.
You know, I did forget to mention too, this also have a private platform for the private communities. We do have a community out on the west end as well as on the south end that's investing in this and providing us access to it. I know it's a push that we've done for future commercial businesses to establish that, and in the future, hopefully with collaboration with not only the private side of it, but other agencies will be able to, at least our solvability will be a lot higher and reduce crime. So that's what we're hoping for.
So
Yes, sir.
that leads me to one other question, that if a private business or a private community wanted to invest in that, they could contact the flock company and purchase a camera for their community or for their business?
That is correct. There's if they just log on to Flock Safety, there's obviously a public sector and a private sector, and they would just contact a representative there, and they would sit down and explain the whole solution for them.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Kruger.
Yes. So if it has the ability to triangulate gunshots, I assume it does the same thing for fireworks?
Yes, it differentiates between the fireworks and gunshots as well.
Thank you for answering that, because that was my next question, because it's constant. Did you hear all of those gunshots? I didn't know anybody could shoot that quick. And it's like, that was fireworks. But
And
sometimes
I'd
it
like to
is.
come back next year and say, hey, yeah, it works great. We haven't worked that part. Obviously, the ALPR solution works great, but let's see how this works, because
Yeah, in
I'm
real life.
excited because they have also, you could also acknowledge glass breaks, tire squelching and things like that. So we're going to be educated during this trial period. So it's just a training education part that we're going to see how well it works.
It's awesome. I think it's great. Look forward to reports on how well it does work.
Well, I had two questions, but she asked the one, but my question was on an M80, if it would be able to differentiate between an M80 and a,
Boom.
That's what they're
Gunshot.
telling me.
That's
yeah.
what they're
Yeah.
saying.
And the other question was, so the car has to be reported stolen in order for the flock system to work, correct?
There has to be a DOJ stop or note on the vehicle. So if it's noted as stolen, or if it's noted as wanted in a murder or any other type of crime, serious crime,
Kidnapping or
kidnapping, so forth, it automatically sends that information. Now, we are able to search in crimes regarding anybody involved in a crime. Obviously, we have to have the plate and the vehicle type to able to coordinate which way the vehicle went during specific times. So that'd be something that we would do afterwards. This is a solution that's, we're paying for a service agreement, so we don't own it. They put all that information, which is, it gets really expensive as we put things up in the cloud and we store information. So that's what makes it affordable for a lot of public agencies. And that's why you see a lot of these public agencies moving forward towards it. And that's only for public streets where people traverse through those public streets.
So if it senses a stolen car, does it go to dispatch or does it go straight to the police car?
Goes straight to the police car,
Perfect. So people now,
as well as dispatch. I'm sorry if so
people can now say, I got flocked in Hemet.
yes,
Okay.
maybe I shouldn't answer that.
I had to. I'm sorry. I had to.
You get one demerit for that one. Yeah, well, I'm not going to touch that one as a 10. Since we haven't approved the consent calendar, I have two short questions on two additional items. Can I just ask them, because one of them is for the chief? Thank you. On 16F, which is I just about choked when I saw the word analog, but then I read the report and I unchoked.
Oh.
Because I'm going, why aren't we going digital? But my question is on, I had found one and that was answered, but when it goes into the customer responsibilities as far as premises work and installation work and all of that, I'm assuming that is not included in the 112,900, but it is something that is normal maintenance in your police budget?
That's all included.
Is all
That's the
included.
total included price. We paid we get 1 year factory warranty and service to include, we paid for additional 4 years,
Well, you did
which-
a good job.
which all the solution updates, everything we do for 4 years, bumper to bumper.
There you go.
So,
I'm done. But I do have a question now for, Steve Lariso can't get away without me asking a question. Come on up. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate the
Thank you.
information and
Have a
the
good
job
evening.
you're doing over there.
You're the next contestant on the buses, right?
What did you say?
Couldn't even get it out.
Okay, on 16G, which is the additional funding from RCTC on sidewalks and such. And I was at the meeting where we approved this and I was going, yay, for our team. We get some additional funding. Do we have a time frame for start of the construction of this project?
I don't have one yet.
How soon are you going to get one and come and tell us that it's already started?
I will likely come back to the next city council meeting and tell you when we were planning to get it ready.
Okay. Can I urge you to get it started sooner than later?
Do exactly what we
Because we
can.
were very fortunate that a couple other cities didn't get their ducks in a row. And so there was additional funding from there. And there was also additional funding from the state. So we were very fortunate that we got this increased funding, and we need to be able to show RCTC that, look at this, you give us money and boy, we get it done just like that.
It is identified within our CIP budget. It's just getting through the rest of the projects that we're trying to push them on through. And I will have an update for city manager by next council meeting of when we can get ready to have that out.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Steve. That's it.
And Mayor, I'd like to just make one comment. I'd like to give some kudos, obviously, for Councilmember Krupa for being a part of that discussion, but also to Councilmember Mails, because Councilmember Mails actually brought this project up probably close to a year ago during the discussions related to the CIP. We made note because it was really important to Councilmember Mails while we were at this meeting. And we started looking and identifying potential funding for this project. We had initially proposed this project to RCTC. They didn't fund it, and then came back to us earlier this year asking us if we were still interested. And we said, absolutely yes. So I say all that to say that it's really important for us to hear that feedback from council members about projects that are really relevant and important to them, because we do take note and we do follow up to identify what type of funding sources we can use. So thank you, council member. And thank you, Steve.
If I could add to that, I think that's one of the things that we as a council and as a city need to look at is to how do we get the projects that we want into the quote shovel ready stage, so that when funding is available, we can go in and say, we have shovel ready plans and you give us the money and we will get it done. Because lately in the last year, 2 years, whatever, the state has come down with all sorts of funding for shovel ready projects. And if we don't qualify, we don't get. And a lot of the cities are going forward and getting those plans, even though there's no guarantee that funding is going to be available in a 1 year period of time, or a 2 or even a 3. But if the project is at that point, more than conceptual, in the air, that it's actually a firm plan, that we stand a better chance of getting additional funding.
That's a really good point. And I can say that over the last couple of years, the real priority has just been getting caught up on the CIP that was adopted in 2017.
Yeah, I
So a
agree.
lot of that has been design work related to CIP projects that were on the books for, over 4 or 5 years that just hadn't had any movement. And so we're finally getting to a point where we're getting caught up. We're at the point where we can start taking on, new ideas for projects and getting to the point where we're actually moving the needle more than what has been done historically. Steve, maybe you can provide a little bit of context as to what the last couple of years have been related to the CIP, because I know we've been issuing, or the council's been approving projects, for instance, slurry seal projects from fiscal year 18-19, just because there wasn't any movement on that. So Steve, maybe you can talk about the details associated with the catch-up work that we've been doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, City Manager Lopez. That is a good point. You may have seen that we've done 17, 18, 19, 20 projects within just the last year's time frame, just to catch up to those. Granted, we would have typically have done those previously within the last 2 years. However, because of the scheduling of the way we were utilizing the certain funds, more slurry seal versus rehab, that kind of played out. Getting projects shovel ready is an absolute great thing. I do remember back when, I can't think of, President Obama had the plan when it was the New Deal. I remember that. And there was this big push to have shovel ready projects. And it was a new concept at the time, because a lot of agencies barely scraping by to get the projects ready. And we've just been a bit behind on trying to get all those projects out the door, that we really haven't had a chance to really get to the point of having stuff sitting on the shelf. We've been working with Travis and his team a lot over the last year on getting just tank projects upgraded, wells fixed, and a lot of those things have been sitting. But he just asked me right now, he said, where's my sewer line project?
Right on.
So we're getting caught up. We've been graciously allowed to spend millions and millions of dollars over the last couple of years to get a lot of these street projects And I actually had a joke earlier today with Eric McBride in the department, because he's been getting a lot of calls lately saying, hey, when's my street getting paved? And it was one of those things we joked about at the very beginning of starting to put all this stuff out. People were saying nothing's happening. And then now you get to the point where, well, that street was done. When's my street going to be done? So it's a good problem to have, but trying to explain that is oftentimes a bit of a challenge. But as we continue to go forward and get ahead of all the projects that we have, it is an absolutely great idea to start shovel ready some of those oddball projects that we just want to get done in the future.
And maybe, you know, with that point that was made by Councilmember Krupa, maybe what we can do is start looking at, as we start moving into the new fiscal year budget, we can look at an additional, you know, allocation of funding to maybe boost up maybe some of the design work, or some of, you know, add some capacity to, you know, get some more of these projects shovel ready, so that when that funding does become available, we're ready to go with the design, the specs, all of that, in the hopes that when the funding is made available, we're able to just, you know, apply for it and then go from there. So maybe that's when we can have some more conversations, Steve, about what type of things we can do in that scenario.
Thank you. Appreciate
And
that.
it really is for us getting creative, hearing from input from you and the community of what types of projects too. So thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion that we approve all the items on consent calendar, items 16A through 16G.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Brown, second by Councilmember Krupa. Go through the roll call. Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Krupa,
Yes.
Councilmember Mills,
Yes.
Mayor Lilienthal.
Yes.
That motion passes 4-0 to approve the consent calendar.
All right. Well, so we're moving on to city council and staff reports.
Thank you, Mayor. The only item I have on my list for tonight is to talk a little bit about Ramona Bowl, reminding everybody that the pageant is resuming again, and we've missed it the last couple of years. So those of us that have memory fade problems, you could go see it again, even if you've seen it before, because it's been a couple of years. And also they're making some little tweaking of the script, so there might be some nuances that you haven't seen before. So again, the dates are April 23rd and 24th, and April 30th and May 1st. And tickets will be going on sale soon, if not already. We have a board member here in the audience, and at the last board meeting last week, the board affirmed the cast members selection. So the cast is set, and they had a rehearsal Saturday, and a lot of the board members were able to attend, and it was a good demonstration of the board support for the work that the actors are doing. And from the feedback that I've been reading in the emails, it was very much appreciated by the cast. And Mayor, that's all I have.
Councilmember Krupa.
Okay. For the library, just remind you of what Mr. Fletcher said, that there is a fundraiser at Polly's Pies for the Library Foundation, and I believe it's 20% of the proceeds go to the Library Foundation. So it will run through tomorrow. So go to Polly's Pies and have dinner, breakfast, dinner, whatever.
Yeah.
And buy a pie. But I think you have to take the flyer with you to get a discount on the pie.
Yeah.
So
If you go on Him and I News, there's a posting on there with a link to the barcode that they have to scan.
very good. Okay. And yeah, the other thing at the library is that their outdoor story walk is up, and that's out in front where the trees and the planters and all of that stuff is. And it is in honor of the Day of the Child, which is coming up in April. I did want to report out on the Airport Land Use Commission, although it's not on their actual meeting after the last council meeting and comments that supervisor or the county may be closing Hemet Ryan Airport. I decided to make some phone calls and through my contacts on the commission and other entities associated with airports in Riverside County, I ended up talking with Angela Jameson, who is the head of aviation for Riverside County. And she assured me that Hemet Ryan is not being sold, closed, or shut down, and that the airport itself has what is called or referred to as the Evergreen Clause with the Federal Aeronautics Administration or Aviation Administration. And each time that any funding is received, that contract goes on for X number of years. And I believe they just received some federal funding, and their lease and usage is extended by a minimum of another 20 years. And they're going to be getting some more funding. So that period of time keeps extending. And CAL FIRE also has just agreed to put some major improvements into their end of the airport for the firefighting. So I think our airport is secure, and I think it's secure. That's all I have to say.
Councilmember Mails.
I attended the planning commission meeting on last Tuesday, and boy, they got out of there in 45 minutes. Unbelievable. I was so happy. But anyways, they had 2 votes on 2 extensions of tentative track mappings of 35,392 and 35,393, and they both passed, so they both got 2-year extensions. Skate park, I'm still looking forward to seeing that happen, and that's about it for me.
City manager.
Yeah, just a couple items on my side, Mayor. The first one is obviously we have bi-monthly community meetings in different council districts every 2 months. We are scheduled to have the next one April 21st. And I believe the mayor and I don't know which council member it is, but that's scheduled on April 21. And we're partnering up with various HOAs, various neighborhood groups to coordinate those.
Know where that one is?
Not off the top of my head. And then I believe almost everyone is probably involved with Principal for a Day this Thursday. There is a hold that was sent out, I believe it was earlier today by Brenda for employee recognition dinner that we're hosting to honor our employees and honor them for the good work that they do. So that is there is a hold for April 28th, 2022. And then finally, my last update is it's one of my favorite times of the year, and I know Lorena's favorite time of the year as well, budget season. So with that being said, we will be having Brenda reach out to each of you to confirm your availability for whether they're special meetings or whether they're meetings that we start a little bit earlier to make sure that we have adequate time to gather council input before we finalize and bring forward a draft budget to the council. So all departments and all divisions are currently moving along the various budget process. I will begin my preliminary meetings with departments and divisions to get an understanding of any increases for contracts, agreements, those types of things in the next couple of weeks. And so I do hope to be able to schedule some time in April with the council to be able to go over some of the requests, specific items that the council would like to see in the budget so that those are incorporated in the fiscal year 22-23 budget. That concludes my report, Mayor. Thank you.
You guys want to add anything to the future agenda? Okay.
When we had our last ad hoc committee meeting, city manager pressed them hard for a date certain to have the intersection of Florida and San Jacinto Street completed. And interestingly enough, they gave him a date certain, which was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So I went by, I have pictures from 5:11 PM last Friday, which was at least a week after the completion date. And lo and behold, it wasn't finished. So I think we need to talk with them again, tell them where the good things that have happened, because some of the intersections are doing better. But a whole lot of it isn't doing better. And I think we just need to remind them that we are here. This is our city and we are watching.
So are our citizens.
Did you have anything to add, Russ?
Yeah, there, I would certainly endorse that we schedule a meeting with them. I'll be out of town, but I should be able to participate virtually. And I think that I have a concern that I've shared with them before about a section of their highway that has, in their terminology, which was the justification for the raised center median, a high frequency of cross median collisions. This particular area has a high frequency and of fatal head-on collisions. And I think I would like to discuss the possibility of perhaps getting a letter from the city council asking them to address that.
So while we're on this topic, I think just so that the entire council knows, I've been able to provide bits and pieces of this, but not everything. But I got an update from Steve Lariso. They had said that there was no information related to when the San Jacinto, Florida project would be completed after they told us the initial date. And then additional questions from Councilmember Brown on February 15th, the traffic signal at Four Seasons Boulevard in Florida. Caltrans has assigned maintenance staff to review the location and report back. And then the pavement issues along Route 74, likely as a result of the median project. And so they are looking at scheduling whatever discussions they need on their side. So that's just a brief update for the council on that.
There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned to the next city council meeting on April 12th, 22. Thank you for joining us.